Welcome to Kamen. It's the story of a father who fights with odds to save his daughter from clutches of criminals. At the beginning of the story, we see a man named Bryan Mills. He has served in the United States Army Special Forces and as an officer in the CIA. Bryan is divorced from his wife, and the biggest reason for their separation was his job. He was always busy with work and could not give time to his wife, which led to their divorce. He has a 17-year-old daughter named Kim, whom he loves deeply and worries about a lot. However, Kim does not live with him. She stays with her mother and stepfather. On her birthday, he goes to wish her at her wife's house. He talks to her daughter about her life and reminds him about her singing passion. After that, he goes to his house where his friends arrives to have a party with him. One day, Bryan is assigned as the head of security for a pop star. He asks if she would help her daughter in her singing career. She rebuffs him rudely. During the show, a man attacks the pop star with a knife, but Bryan saves her life and brings her home safely. Earlier, the pop star had casually dismissed. After Bryan saves her life, she promises to help Kim become a singer in every possible way. Bryan is happy. He calls his daughter to a restaurant to share the good news. His ex-wife also arrives with Kim, but before Bryan can tell Kim about the pop star's promise, Kim expresses her desire to go to Paris with her friend Amanda and asks for his permission. Since Kim is only 17, she needs her father's signature on the travel form. Her mother accompanies her to convince Bryan. Bryan, being concerned for Kim's safety, refuses to let her go. Kim tells him that she is going to Paris just to visit museums with Amanda, but Bryan still does not approve. He warns her that the world is dangerous, and people will try to take advantage of her. Upset by Bryan's refusal, Kim leaves the restaurant. His ex-wife tells Bryan that he sacrificed their marriage for his country and his job. She warns him that if he does not change, he will lose his daughter as well. After thinking about it, Bryan changes his mind. He signs the permission form and gives Kim a mobile phone with international calling, and tells her to call him every night. Kim is happy hearing this. When Bryan drops Kim off at the airport, he notices a map in her luggage that marks various destinations besides Paris. Realizing that Kim lied to him and is not just going to visit museums but is actually planning a world tour, Bryan becomes upset. His ex-wife admits that Kim did not tell him the truth because if she had, he would never have allowed her to go. Despite Bryan's concerns, Kim and Amanda leave for Paris. As soon as both girls step out of the airport in Paris, they start taking pictures. Just then, a young man approaches them and offers to take a picture of them together. After clicking their photo, he asks where they are from. The girls tell him they are from California. The young man then tells them that taxis in Paris are very expensive and suggests that they share a ride. The girls agree and get into a taxi with him. He takes them to the place where they are supposed to stay. However, before leaving, he casually asks them which floor and room they are staying in. Amanda, without thinking much, tells him the room number and floor. After leaving them, the young man makes a phone call and informs someone that two American girls, around 18 years old, are staying on the 5th floor. Inside the room, Amanda is extremely excited. She turns up the music loudly and starts dancing. Meanwhile, Kim receives a call from her father. Since the music is too loud, she moves to the washroom to talk. Bryan reminds her to stay alert and give him every detail of her surroundings. While talking to her father, Kim suddenly notices that some men have entered the room where Amanda is dancing. They grab Amanda and start abducting her. Seeing this, Kim is frightened and informs her father. Bryan tells her not to panic and to immediately hide under the bed. Kim does exactly as he says. Bryan then tells her to listen carefully. She is about to be taken, but she must leave the phone on and, as soon as they grab her, she should scream out any details she notices about the kidnappers. Within moments, the men storm into Kim's room and drag her out. Kim, terrified, shouts into the phone. He's 6 feet tall. He has a tattoo of a moon and stars on his hand. The kidnappers take Kim, and Bryan helplessly listens to everything over the phone. Just then, he realizes that one of the kidnappers has picked up the phone. In a calm but threatening voice, Bryan speaks. "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my daughter go now, that will be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you." From the other end of the phone, a voice says, "Good luck," and then the call disconnects. Bryan goes to his ex-wife's house to talk to her husband, who is a rich man. He thinks it may be done by his enemies, but his friend tells him that these men are involved in human trafficking. They are part of a Russian group that kidnaps female tourists, drugs them, and then sells them. This entire process takes around 96 hours, which means if Bryan wants to save his daughter, he has only 96 hours. Ex-wife's house pleads with him, "Please bring my daughter back." Bryan replies, "First, I need to find her." Bryan arrives in Paris and immediately goes to the apartment where Kim and her friend Amanda were staying. There, he finds a memory card, and upon checking the photos, he notices the reflection of the young man who had approached the girls outside the airport. This was the same man who later informed the kidnappers about them. Now that Bryan has the man's picture, he goes back to the airport, where he sees the same guy trying to lure another tourist. Bryan grabs him and forces him into a taxi, interrogating him. However, the man manages to escape. Bryan chases after him, but before he can catch him again, the man gets into an accident and dies. At this point, Bryan meets an old acquaintance, a former French intelligence officer. The officer gives Bryan the address of the red light district where the traffickers operate. He also warns Bryan, "These people are dangerous. Stay away from them." He replies, "If I have to bring down the Eiffel Tower to save my daughter, I will." He goes to the location, where he meets a young woman forced into prostitution. He pretends to bargain with her when suddenly, a man approaches, the leader who controls all the girls in the area. Bryan secretly plants a tracking device on the man and follows him to a construction site. Bryan sees many young women, all of them drugged and barely conscious. He notices one girl wearing Kim's jacket. Bryan asks her, "Where did you get this jacket?" However, she is too drugged to respond. He takes her with him, but before he can leave, the traffickers arrive. Fight breaks out between Bryan and the gang members. Somehow Bryan gets the girl into his car and escapes. Now, the police are after him, as he has killed several criminals. But catching Bryan is not easy. He has worked in secret security for years and is a highly trained agent. The also girl regains consciousness. Bryan asks her, "My daughter gave you this jacket. Can you tell me where you met her?" The girl, who was also tricked and trafficked, replies, "There's a house called Blue Paradise with a red door. Your daughter was there when she gave me this jacket." Bryan reaches the house. Two men are guarding the entrance. He shows them the ID of his French intelligence friend and pretends to be a police officer. He tells them, "I know what you do here. If you want to keep your business running, you need to pay protection money to the police." Inside, he sees a man with a moon and star tattoo on his hand, just as Kim had described on the phone, but the man doesn't say anything. Bryan shows him some papers and starts asking questions, trying to make him talk. Suddenly, the man says, "Good luck," the same words he had spoken before Kim was taken. Bryan realizes he has found the kidnapper. He places his hand on his shoulder and says, "I told you I would find you, and I found you in just 2 days." Bryan then kills all the traffickers and continues his search for Kim. He finds many drugged girls, including Kim's friend Amanda, but Amanda has been given a lethal overdose and is already dead. However, Kim is not there. Bryan takes the tattooed kidnapper hostage and tortures him until he confesses. The man says, "Your daughter was a virgin. We don't keep virgin girls. We sell them because they fetch a high price." Bryan demands, "Who did you sell her to?" The man replies, "I only know his name, Patrick St. Clair. That's all I know." Before leaving, Bryan electrocutes the kidnapper to death and goes to the same French man named Jean, who was once an agent but now works for the government. However, Bryan suspects him. When he sees Bryan, he is nervous. Bryan asks, "Tell me, who is Patrick St. Clair?" Jean responds, "I don't know." Then, he pulls a gun on Bryan, but Bryan had already removed the bullets beforehand. In retaliation, Bryan shoots Jean's wife in the arm and warns, "If you don't tell me where St. Clair is, your kids will lose their mother forever." Fearing for his family, Jean gives up St. Clair's address. Bryan reaches the location. A lavish party is taking place inside. To gain entry, he must now deal with security. He shows his card, but the security guard tells him that his name is not on the list. However, Bryan knocks him unconscious and enters the place. He reaches a room where an auction for girls is taking place. Just then, the auctioneer announces that the last girl for the night is up for bidding. The girl brought to the stage is Bryan's daughter, Kim, but Bryan cannot rescue her in front of everyone because he is alone. Instead, He takes one of the bidders at gunpoint and orders him to buy Kim. The man buys Kim for $500,000. Since Kim has been drugged, she is barely conscious. Bryan, holding the man at gunpoint, takes him along to retrieve Kim. But before he can escape, someone attacks him from behind, knocking him unconscious. When Bryan regains consciousness, he finds himself tied to a pipe, facing Patrice St. Clair. Bryan tells him, "My daughter was the last girl in the auction. Give her back to me, and I will leave." Patrice replies, "This is business. Even though I have children, I do not make compromises." He orders his men to kill Bryan and leaves the room. Before Patrice's men can execute him, Bryan breaks free and kills them all. Then he goes after Patrice, asking where his daughter is. Patrice refuses to answer, but Bryan shoots both his hands and a leg, forcing him to talk. Patrice finally admits that Kim has been taken away on a yacht. Bryan empties his gun into Patrice and leaves. By the time Bryan reaches the port, the yacht is already sailing away. He hijacks a car and speeds toward a bridge. As the yacht passes under it, he jumps onto the deck. He fights off all the security guards one by one and reaches the cabin where Kim is held. Inside, an old man, the buyer of the girls, holds a knife to Kim's throat. Bryan immediately aims his gun at the man. Before he can harm Kim, Bryan shoots him straight in the head, killing him instantly. Kim runs to her father, crying, "I love you so much. You came for me," she says. Bryan hugs her and replies, "I told you I would." Bryan takes his daughter back to California. At the airport, Kim's mother is waiting for her. She hugs Kim tightly and then hugs Bryan, thanking him. The divorce between Bryan and his ex-wife had happened because of his dangerous job, but now she understands the importance of his skills. In the final scene, Bryan takes Kim to the pop star's house, the same singer whose life he saved earlier. She had promised to help Kim become a singer. And with this, the film comes to an end. The name of the movie is taken, and it was released in 2008 and has an IMDb rating of 7.8. I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe to this channel.